All right, guys. So, I was talking about dashing and everything. You know, I made, I think, $103 the other day. And it was in the evening, and we got some really good orders. I drove, I think I worked about 4 hours. And, that sounds good, $25 an hour, but you have to consider the wear and tear on your car, the gas, which, I drive a Challenger or a Charger. My Charger's got it's just a GT with the V6 in it, and it gets a lot better gas mileage than my Scat Pack. But, if you take into consideration, if I'm, driving for 4 hours, I'm going to spend, nowadays probably at least $30 in gas in my Challenger, and the Charger I'd probably spend about 10. But, sometimes my wife needs it, it's her car, the Charger is. But, and then your oil changes come up a lot quicker because you're putting miles on your car. So, DoorDash and Uber Eats, as far as, just doing the food deliveries, I, I don't know, it's the best thing that I can find right now with the time that I have to put into, a second source of income to do right now, because we have to. The other job I have is very strenuous physical activity, and it's we work on bank foreclosures, so it could be anything from a trash out to plumbing repairs or landscaping. We have to have the equipment to do all that, and it keeps us pretty busy, but I'm still not where I need to be. So I don't know if you guys have any recommendations for anything that I could do, either from home or driving that pays a lot more than DoorDash or Uber Eats. I'm all ears, because I'm not too happy with the DoorDash right now as everything's going. I'm just, it's just not enough money. So, but I'm still raising my two grandbabies. They're doing good. They're, this is their first year in school, so they're sick a lot. With anything and everything. Stomach viruses, colds, just all that stuff, and they bring it home to us, and we get sick. And then it's just somebody. It seems like somebody in the house is always on antibiotics. But I know it's not funny, but it's true. Trying to think. Like I said, I try to leave everything in the Lord's hands, and I'm not big on preaching, but I'll tell you, ever since I've tried my best to get closer to God, and I tell you, I don't go to church because I don't like organized religion, and I don't think that you have to go to church to have a relationship with God. I just can't see it being that way. Even though I was raised in the Catholic Church, I'm not. I don't consider myself a Catholic anymore. Unfortunately, they got a bad name for themselves, and it's not because of that. It's just my wife and I had kids young, and our first one we had right before we got married. And even though her and I have been together, it's going to be 30 years in September, married, it's still going against God and the church. Having kids out of not being married. So we got married as quick as we could figure it out. And like I said, I have not been. When I was younger, I was an idiot, to be honest with you. I did a lot of stupid things that I know were sins and God didn't agree with. And when you're young, you think you're invincible, you're going to live forever. And I mean, from the time I was 16 until probably the last couple of years, God was just, I didn't think about God too much, but it seems like I've tried to build a relationship with Him now, and I say Him, I don't know if God's a he or a she, and it doesn't really matter to me, but I do thank God for giving me life, and there's so much bad stuff that's going on in this world nowadays. It seems like you could just pray, 24/7 for things. But I just I try to, I'm very empathetic, and if I think that's a word. But anyway, I try to help people, when I can, if they're hungry or anything like that. I'll definitely do anything I can to make sure they have something to eat. And I've been used, before because of that. But I'm not gonna let a few bad seeds ruin me, when it comes to that. But and I talk to God. It seems like I'm talking to myself, but I think that God can hear me, because God knows what I need in my life, and the goals that I have. And I'm sure you guys, if you listen to my other videos, I've had a lot of trouble out of, one of my daughters, and it was my daughters that cost me my really good job that I had, back in September, just because they were jealous, I guess, or I wouldn't give them, I wouldn't support them because they're adults, they need to support themselves. They're in their mid 20s, and they want daddy just to give them everything, and I can't do that anymore because I'm already raising two of their kids, right? So, but not to preach on that, because I love my grandbabies, and I wouldn't trade it for the world. But I'm just trying to make it, and I'm trying to better our situation that we're in. And it just seems like I take 2 steps forward, 1 step back all the time. And sometimes 2 steps forward and 3 steps back. I don't know, it's weird, but, they say that, God's outside of time, from what I, have come to understand, and it makes sense to me. And I'm sure God knows the past, present, the future, because I guess, from what I've heard, it's all, happening at the same time. So, hopefully God's got, a plan to where, things will get better for all of us, all of humanity, and, myself included, because I do need it. I'm trying to live the best life I can. So, hope I didn't bore you guys with the video, but, I'm just trying to figure out, and I want answers to questions that I know that I'll never get, like, what's the meaning of life? Maybe I'll get that answer when we die. I'm not sure, but I've never had any really divine experiences, but I have had things happen to me that seem like, like, say, if I'm just broke, it just seems like money shows up, just not a bunch of money, but just what I need, and it seems that is got to be coming from a higher power, because everything is not a coincidence, you know what I mean? So I don't necessarily believe in coincidences, but I really enjoyed the 1990s, all the way through. That's kind of when I grew up, in the 90s. And I like the privacy that we had. I like technology now, but I also liked it when we didn't have the technology that we have now, because we didn't have it, so we didn't miss it. And, we still found ways to entertain ourselves and, get things done. I mean, the world moved on, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, there's there's so many things that have changed in this world that just almost seems like I'm, in a parallel universe sometimes. You know, but like I said, if you guys out there have any words of wisdom for me, I would, I'd take those in and really listen to them and try to apply, whatever suggestions you have that might be working for you. Like I said, DoorDash that I'm doing right now is a second source of income. It is making me a little money, but you're not going to get rich. I mean, I'm not going to get rich doing DoorDash. Maybe there's a way that you could, but I can't. I don't do it 24/7 either. So maybe that's the reason. But anyway, I'll let you guys go. I'm gonna go ahead and upload this video, and if y'all know of anything that I can do to, maybe make a second income. I usually get home from work around 5 p.m. and I can work until midnight. That's enough rest for me. And if I can make some decent money doing anything from home, or package deliveries or something like that, let me know. I'd really be glad to try it out. All right. Well, listen. I hope you guys all stay safe. I hope everybody, just gets what they ask for and lives a happy life and everything. So I will. I'll start making some more videos, reaching out to you guys a little more. But I hope you all stay safe. All right. I will talk to you later. And as always, peace out. All right. Love you guys.